Welcome back, folks. As you can see by my Discord, we were looking at shitty, awful games yesterday. Want to just say thank you to AAE 50100 for donating during Steve's block, as well as Arizona for donating during Steve's block. I think Arizona's probably Tim, I would have to imagine, but
I would imagine.
But alrighty, so this is going to be the Doomsday Clock discussion block. Let me actually update our Twitch page, which I think I can do from the commands, but I'm not going to because I'm lazy.
I just thought about calling my block as Batman with the Batman game, the world's worst detective, but my block didn't do a lot of detecting. I did get to fight Deathstroke the Terminator, though. I was pretty excited about that. That was cool.
Alrighty. Aces, let's do it.
Let's put my controller down. So, we might be able to only get through, like, we have a half hour, right? So,
Yeah.
if we only get through the one issue, that's fine. But, like, I just think it'll be fun to talk about. So, I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna talk about a little bit about Doomsday Clock. I'm gonna do my best Dal from Comic Pop impression, and I'm gonna try to explain everything that's happening, and I want to see what Rob thinks. So, Doomsday Clock, for a little background, was written by Jeff Johns with art by Gary Frank. It started coming out in 2017. It was only supposed to last a year. Ended up not being finished until 2019. Took a little over 2 years. And in that time, DC had fired their most of their editorial staff. And the direction that they were moving in with this, they kind of were just like, never mind. So this, in the middle of its run, this was supposed to be the marching orders for the direction of the DCU going forward. And they, halfway through the run, decided against it. So it's like, it got neutered. So for all the cool stuff that happens, none of it really has any bearing on the continuity or what goes on with the universe. So the first page, and it's also a direct sequel to Watchmen, as much as Jeff Johns will say it's not. So, it's literally like it opens in the Watchmen universe. So as you can see here on this page, this is the aftermath of 6 years after the events of Watchmen, and the world is on its fucking head. Like, everything's gone crazy. And it's because everybody finds out that Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias from the first Watchmen, killed 3 million people in New York in the name of world peace. And you're kind of just seeing, like, the world break down. Like, the Soviets are invading Eastern Europe, and the world stands on the brink. And there's a massive manhunt by the U.S. government to find Ozymandias. And you can see here that they send a special forces squad to go hunt him down in the Arctic, but, of course, he's not there. And, yeah, you find out there's an X-ray of a skull, which you can assume to be Ozymandias's, with a spot in it. And it's all set against this background of these talking heads talking about what's happening in the world and how the U.S. government has pretty much put the can on free press and is now only interested in propaganda. So then we cut to a prison, and all these prisoners are freaking out, like, right, they're rioting because they're like, the world is ending, like the nukes are about to fall. And they assault this guard and ask for the keys, and bada boom, we get the reveal that Rorschach is alive. Although, sort of. But anyway, Rorschach's here. So you might be like wondering, like, at the end of Watchmen, Rorschach literally gets vaporized, like atomized by Dr. Manhattan. But you know what? Here he is. Comics.
Comic books.
So he's here for seemingly some kind of reason. He's looking for somebody. And it turns out, every panel of him putting his key in the door is mirroring the U.S. getting ready to launch all their nuclear weapons. And then you open the door and you find out it's some woman, which turns out this is Marionette. He's here to get Marionette because it's explained later in the story, but she fought Dr. Manhattan at an earlier point, and he realized she was pregnant, and so he leaves her alive for some reason instead of just, atomizing everybody like he does to most of his bad guys. So she refuses to. Long story short, she doesn't believe Rorschach's not going to hurt her. He shows her that he is different. It's a different person. He's actually black. I mean, that's literally the reveal. Like, she's like, "How do I know you're not Rorschach?" And he's like, "Ta-da!"
He's like, I've changed races.
It's like, "Oh, okay, interesting." So he shows her a picture of her son and is like, "Come with me if you want to see him." And she's like, "I'm not gonna leave without my husband." And he's like, and Rorschach's just like, "Oh my God, really? I have to? Okay, hang on, we'll go get him."
Where's my
And
son?
you see your husband in like the mail cell block, and there's obviously more rioting. And his name is Mime. And so the Watchmen superheroes have no superpowers. The only one with superpowers is Doctor Manhattan. So I don't know what Mime's ability is in this universe, other than he doesn't talk and he's very strong. I really don't know what he does. He like mimes out things, but I don't know if you'll see later on, I guess. Like when he comes over to the DC universe, he has powers, but here he doesn't. So I really don't know what his gimmick is, but he's
Muscles.
getting he's getting beat up and his wife's like, "We're leaving." And then he just savagely beats up the other guys,
Jesus, what the fuck? Is
all
he?
with this amazing smile on his face.
Uh,
And Rorschach's like, "We need to leave." And she's like, "Wait, you can't interrupt him in the middle of his performance." And he's like, "Performance?" And then, he poses and they leave. He's like, Rorschach's like, "Just come with me." Long story short, they go, they get all their gear. This is what I'm talking about, right? So Mime's locker has got nothing in it. Like he goes to get his stuff, but then he's like grabbing a gun, putting on a belt, grabbing and loading another gun, like,
you have big problems.
oh yeah.
Just
Coming from Rorschach, that's even better.
yeah.
So they escape, he gets in this beat up jalopy. They drive to New York, everyone's leaving.
He's the only one going in. I wish that kind of traffic would never happen in New York.
Oh yeah, no, coming over the Brooklyn Bridge like this, it looks like that both ways, man. Like this must be like a different reality. Everything's going crazy. He's leading them through the sewers. He pulls out his invisible Mime pulls out an invisible gun and threatens Rorschach. And Rorschach has this amazing line where he says, "Don't point imaginary guns at me."
I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do? Imagine, pretend to shoot me? Like,
Oh, you'll see what Mime can do. So he leads them through the sewers, and he leads them right to what turns out to be Night Owl's lair. Right? So you think, oh, okay, Dan is going to try and save the world. No, it's Ozymandias back on his bullshit. He's like, "Aha, I'm going to save the world again." And Marion has this great sequence where she's like, you're the reason that it's like the way it is, and you know where my son is, so I'm gonna kill you. And Ozymandias is like, "Well, if you kill me, I'm not gonna tell you where your son is, so checkmate." Like,
so basically, at this point in the story, she's just Marlin from Finding Nemo. She's like, "Have you seen my son?"
pretty much. Essentially, the first act of this book was like a really violent Finding Nemo. Like, "I'm gonna touch the butt. Don't touch the butt." Nemo touched the butt, and then he's gone. And now they're like, "We need to find Nemo." Right? Even though you don't find out her son's name until the end, but
Except in this
so
version, like Marlin's a woman, and
and
his
a violent
sidekick,
sociopath.
his sidekick is a black man instead of like a
Yeah.
blue fish.
Instead of a absent-minded fish, yeah, he has a violent sociopath and a Rorschach mask. So he's essentially telling them their plan, and he's like, "I'm gonna save the world," and they're like, "How do you plan on doing that? It didn't really go so well the first time." And he's like, "I'm just gonna get Doctor Manhattan to save the world," and they're like, "Nobody has seen Doctor Manhattan in like 8 years. He's been like he left," and he's like, "I'll find him." So he essentially monologues about how he's dying and how he's gonna go to the wherever John is to find him. And then it cuts to the DC universe, right? Which is implying like it's the phrase says wherever he's retreated to, and then we cut to Metropolis, and it's Superman and Lois Lane sleeping, and Clark starts to toss and turn, and then you see what he's dreaming about, and it's the night of his prom, and his parents are talking, trying to convince him it's going to be fun, and how he should have a good time, and he gets to watch his best friend dance with his girl he has a crush on, so Clark gets to have not a good time, and his parents die.
Oh, good. Yeah,
This
just
is the new 50. This is the recap of the new 52 origin of Superman, which is different from all the other ones in that his parents are also dead. They Batmanified Superman.
well, aren't Superman's parents dead because they blew up on Krypton?
Yes, his actual parents, like Jor-El and Laura, are dead. But this is Jonathan and Martha Kent. So these are like his actual parents, the ones that raise him. So they die here. So DC turns Superman into Batman essentially. So like no more parents, even though like Clark's parents are like the reason he becomes whatever. They fucked it up. They killed his parents. So Clark's having and you find out Clark's having a nightmare. And there's this really beautifully illustrated sequence where when he wakes up, Lois is trying to calm him down, and she says like, "You're yelling and you're shaking the room. Are you okay?" And he's like, "I'm remembering the night of my parents' murder." And she just says, "Please come down," because it turns out during his nightmare he floated up into the middle of the air and started screaming.
That's terrifying.
And she says, and Lois says to Superman, "I can't remember the last time you had a nightmare, Clark." And he goes, "I don't think I've ever had a nightmare."
Must
And
be
then that's the end
nice.
of the first issue. And then you get a bunch of backstory. This is like all the stuff about the New York massacre, and that's about the first Rorschach. Sorry, let's see. There we go. It should just prompt me to launch the second issue. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So then we cut back to the DC universe, or the Watchmen universe, and Marionette and Mime are reminiscing on how they ended up in prison in the first place. And it's essentially showing them their first interaction with Dr. Manhattan. And there's this great panel here where they're just like posing for the cameras, and Mime just loves his wife so much he's like, boom, there she is. But someone triggers the silent alarm. He's like, "You shouldn't have done that," and then headbutts his way through the
What the
plexiglass.
fuck?
Like I said, bro, he's holding an invisible gun this time too.
Can somebody like drug test this man for like PEDs?
Bro, he's on something. So they're talking, she's making threats as they always do. This is when you find out Marionette's powers. She doesn't have any powers, but she keeps a piece of piano wire that connects between both of her gloves and uses it to slice people. So it looks like she has like superpowers, and there's a really horrifying sequence later in the book where she does something really cool with it.
Oh, she sliced
But
his finger off.
yeah. Oh, bro, wait till you see what she does later. So they're like, "Wait, there's some kind of alarm," and then they notice all the static, and Dr. Manhattan shows up. So this is where Dr. Manhattan fights them, and by fights them I mean tries to blow them up, because that's just what he does.
What are you staring at?
So
Boobs.
he's, he's gonna kill the mime, and she's like, "You have to kill both of us," and then John's like, that's never. He's like, I've never had this moral conundrum before because this is out of character for me, but maybe I will spare you. You know, because there's a sequence in Watchmen where he's in Vietnam and he watches the comedian just murder this woman in cold blood who's pregnant. So I really don't know why John lets her live at this point, because he hasn't had his character turn yet, because this is right before the events of Watchmen. So I don't know. Jeff Johns is getting wacky with it. So that just explains their backstory, and then Ozymandias is like, "All right, fuckers, hop in, going for an adventure." So they launch, they're in the air, and the nukes are already launching. Like they're in the air.
Oh.
So as the nukes are about to hit Ozymandias, the machine doesn't work. So everyone's like, fucking Rorschach's just like, "Push the button again," as if that's gonna fix it if it's broken.
Oh, that
And
panel is horrifying. Oh
yeah,
my
the
god.
nukes are
Oh,
landing.
oh my god. That guy's being fucking sent to re-atomize. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so as the nukes are dropping, they hit the button and it works. And then the Rorschach mask turns into an actual Rorschach test, and you find out Bruce Wayne has to go for company mandated psychological evaluations once a year because he's so flaky and erratic. So he leaves, he starts talking to Lucius, and this is when he turns into gets into Batman mode. He's like not pretending. And you find out that Gotham is having these seemingly random protests against the vigilante Batman. It's essentially just so Jeff Johns could make it seem like Watchmen. you know?
Yeah.
So there are these protests against Batman, and Lucius is like, they don't trust Batman, and Batman's like, when have they ever trusted me? And then out of the clouds comes Archimedes or Archie, and he slams into the. This is a cool Easter egg from Alan Moore from Jeff Johns. They land in the amusement park that the Joker had bought during the Killing Joke, which is another Alan Moore story. So Jeff Johns is just like jerking, stroking himself off to all the Alan Moore lore. He's like, "Oh, you know it. Oh, yeah, you see it. It's all Alan Moore." It's like, we get it, Jeff. We get it. So they wake up, and Ozymandias is like, "Okay, we need to go to the one place where we can, which is like the all time, like the repository for all knowledge in this world, the library."
The
And
library.
Rorschach's like, "Okay, we can go to the public library, but what do we do with these two?" So they just handcuff them to the inside of Archimedes and leave.
Bruh.
So they go to the public library, and Ozymandias this is essentially where he goes, "I'm gonna go talk to the smartest man in the world. You go talk to the second smartest." And Rorschach is seen breaking into Wayne Manor and eating Bruce Wayne's pancakes that Alfred left out for him.
Oh no.
So then he's snooping around and he feels a draft from underneath the clock, the grandfather clock, and notices that it's a secret passageway. And this panel is amazing because it just shows Batman just in the street, just beating up thugs. And Rorschach triggers Batman's like warning systems. So Batman's, out beating up thugs, and as you can't get away with referencing Batman at all ever without showing his dead parents
Every single time.
every time. So then Rorschach triggers Batman's alarm, and Batman's like,
Oh no.
So he goes home, and then this Rorschach, much like the original, just goes herm whenever he's confused about stuff. And he discovers the Batcave. But then we cut to Lex Luthor, and Ozymandias is broken into and is waiting for Lex Luthor in his office. And he's like, you're the smartest man in your world, and I'm the smartest on mine. And he's like, all right, well, I called security. So he's like, no, hear me out. He's like, all right, well, there'll be like 5 minutes before security gets here, so I'll hear you out. And then Marion and Mime break out. She says, did you bring your lockpick? And he kind of like pulls out an invisible lockpick. Again, I don't know, but it works. And between the panels, Ozymandias explains to Lex Luthor his plan. And Lex Luthor essentially goes, so let me get this straight. You created a fake monster, killed millions of people, and thought you were going to unite the world in peace. And Ozymandias is like, yes. He's like, if you're the smartest man on your planet, I'd hate to meet the dumbest, because that is the stupidest fucking idea I've ever heard. And Ozymandias is like, all right, but like, come on. And then it cuts back to the Batcave, and Rorschach is like rummaging through the Batcave and looking at all the trophies that Batman keeps. And he's like, this guy's like a psycho. Like, he can't let go of the past. He's only holding on to all these trophies. Then we cut back to Ozymandias in Luthor's office. Much like in Watchmen, Ozymandias is able to dodge the bullet and let somebody else take it right for him, and Luthor takes it right off the chest. And Ozymandias is like, who's shooting at? Like, what? And there's just a smoking gun in the panel, and it says, the last time you came at me, I was confused, drunk. And Ozymandias is like, that's impossible. And the comedian, the guy who triggered the events of Watchmen, isn't dead. Here he is. Lex Luthor's confused, but Ozymandias clearly is like, this is the work of fucking Dr. Manhattan. Like, I don't understand. And then Batman and Rorschach are face to face, and the first thing they say to each other is, Batman says, you ate my breakfast, and Rorschach says, yeah, I did.
What a dick. My fucking pancakes, bro. You shitting me?
I just love that no matter what Ozymandias does, my man just will not take a bullet and is totally content to let other people take it for him.
Also, hello, John Lim WM? John Limwim? We're gonna go with John. He says that he just watched Zack Snyder's Justice League movie. Did you watch that one?
I did. What did you think of it, John? I'm curious.
What did you think of it, Steve?
So, it's definitely better than the theatrical cut, which isn't saying, which I guess is saying much, right? Like the theatrical cut was really bad because there's no characterization. I feel like this, you got like all the characterization you needed. But at the end of the day, the problem is like the story was built around Superman being dead, right? And like when you form the Justice League, you know Superman's gonna come back. So the whole like plot hinged on that Deus Ex Machina of them reviving Superman and him saving the day. But otherwise, I thought it was cool. I think Zack Snyder fundamentally misunderstands some of the characters, like Superman and Batman in particular. But that's what you get when you get the guy. In an interview before it came out, I remember him explicitly saying, um, Batman. He says, Batman and Superman, like superheroes are stupid, and if you're mad over the fact that I'm changing your favorite heroes, you're stupid. Like,
Wow, that's a
and
great attitude to have.
and in addition, he's like, yeah, of course, like his Batman uses guns in the movie, and he's like, of course, Batman uses guns. If you're gonna be an effective counter-terrorist, how aren't you gonna use guns? And it's like, Batman's not a counter-terrorist.
Yeah, I don't.
Like Batman isn't in Afghanistan fighting insurgents, you know what I mean? Like
I don't think that's like the point of Batman. He's not
the
like you
whole
said.
point
He's
is he
not
doesn't kill people, you know?
right, and like there's really not many ways to use a gun that's not gonna end up with somebody dead, even accidentally.
Pretty much. Let me see if I can get to real quick, if I can show you the panel where Mime actually gets to use his powers. Because it's actually a really cool sequence, because they end up in a Joker bar. And because they're wearing makeup, they take a offense to it, right? You get a flashback here to Ozymandias killing the, the comedian, and then the comedian like Venetian blinds, like phases out of reality and lands in Gotham Harbor or Metropolis Harbor, and he's like, "What the what?" And you only see Doctor Manhattan's legs. Then you see him fighting. There's actually a really beautiful like sequence where he fights Ozymandias again, and like he's just throwing him against the glass, and Lex Luthor's just laying on the ground.
Just bleeding out of his head.
I forgot that Lex Luthor doesn't do anything. He just takes the round and lays there.
It's like, can we please get a bandage for this guy?
Can we please get him some help? So, he's just talking, they're just trying to explain to each other what's happening. And then Ozymandias realizes that, like, he turns off the lights, and the comedian's like, you think I'm scared of the dark? And then he sneak attacks him from the desk he saw him crawl behind as if he was going to surprise him. And then they fight each other some more, and then Ozymandias slips, and the comedian throws him through the window at one point. Or no, he jumps out the window. He weakens it, and then Ozymandias jumps like I don't know how many stories, and like rolls and like really gets fucked up, but is alive somehow. And then Rorschach and Batman, meanwhile, are talking, and he's like, "Who are you? Like, what is going on?" So Rorschach's like trying to explain it to him, and Batman's just like, and Rorschach's like, "You know what? Actually, here, take this," and it gives him Rorschach's journal. And then we go back to Marionette and Mime, who are now escaping. And then Batman tells the Rorschach to go upstairs and like just shower or whatever, because he's like, please stop like breathing down my neck while I'm trying to read this book. And then it cuts to somebody named Johnny Thunder, who is an old founding member of the JSA, who plays a big part in this story. But right now he's just like a crazy old man because he remembers who he's supposed to be and nobody else does. And he just rambles on and on about how he needs to find his genie. Yeah, his whole power was he had a magic lamp that had a genie in it, and like that was the whole thing. And then, much like in Watchmen, which had the Black Freighter thing, like the story in a story, this keeps cutting back to a story of the movie actor called The Adjournment. This is when you actually see Rorschach's face for the first time, and you find out his name is Reggie. Pretty sure he talks about he was so essentially the context for Reggie is the son of the psychologist that Rorschach is assigned in prison. And while he's in prison, like in being interviewed by this guy, Reggie thinks his dad's making breakthroughs, and he thinks that he keeps telling him that Rorschach and him are friends, and that like Rorschach can be helped. And you come to find out more about his backstory later, but he was on his way home when the monster attacked New York, and he was psychologically damaged by it, like permanently. So he's like That's why he speaks in like such broken English and stuff, is because like he survived the attack, but his brain got scrambled by it.
Uh,
So like when he got into the shower here, he's like he can't wash. He feels like he can't wash the stink off. So like he claws at his scalp until it bleeds. And then it cuts back to Carver Coleman and the movie, The Adjournment or whatever. People arguing, and then boom, this is what I wanted to show you. Marionette and Mime walk into a Joker bar, right? And they're like, "You're wearing makeup. The boss doesn't like when other people wear makeup." And she's like, "The boss?" And he's like, "The Joker." She's like, "Who's the Joker? I would like to meet this Joker fellow." So then he takes her hostage with his knife, and the mime pulls out his invisible gun. And
you
there's a
for
great
real
panel.
douchebag.
This is the best. He goes, "What are you gonna do with that?" And he goes, "Bang," and blows his brains out with the invisible gun. It's amazing. This is one of the
What?
best sequences in the entire book, and it's because he didn't have powers in the Watchmen world, which is supposed to be our world, but when he's crossed over to the DC universe, he has powers. So like I don't know if in his universe he affects this sort of like threat through other means, but in this universe he just shoots him with the invisible gun and kills him, which of course triggers a brawl because they're just like, "Oh my god!"
That
It's
guy
like,
got all of it right.
and then there's this great two-panel thing spread where he's just got this evil smile and the gun is smoking,
The invisible boatmobile.
bro. And then they attack him and he just starts blowing them all away with the invisible gun.
What the fuck? Look at that guy in the bottom center panel, dude.
Oh, he throws an invisible blade and slashes his throat.
Damn.
So then Marionette's like, "Oh, we're gonna have a party. Let's have a party." And she pulls out her piano wire, and this is the sequence I was talking about. This is horrifying. She cuts that guy's head in half, turns, cuts his gun in half, hacks his arm off, looks him in the face and says, "Oh, you have pretty eyes," and then lunges at him and it all goes red.
Jesus Christ.
Like Gary Frank, like this is a tour de force in comic book art. This is also the best depiction of Superman I've ever seen, but like these 6 panels right here sold me on this whole thing. I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is dope. This is really cool." And then, they killed everybody. So they're just drinking at the bar. Some guy's got his head jammed through a jukebox. Like,
Jesus Christ.
so they're like, "Let's go find the Joker," essentially. And then cut back to Johnny Thunder, the Carver Coleman movie. And this is where Reggie has the flashback to what happened to him. And he wakes up screaming, and Bruce is like, "It's all right. You're safe. You slept for almost a whole day. I read your book, and I know where Dr. Manhattan is." And he's like, "What?" So then Batman, you see like Arkham Asylum, and Batman and Rorschach are riding on top of one of the police vans, like dropping off a prisoner. And there's this really neat sequence where Batman pulls out his little grapple gun, and Rorschach pulls out like his huge monstrosity of one, and he's just like,
I may have messed up.
And he's like, he asks him if he can get one of those, and Batman's like, "I guess so." And he's like, "He's in here." And Rorschach's like, "Dr. Manhattan, we need to talk." And he's like, "Wait, what?" And then Batman closes the door, and he's like, "You're a crazy person. You belong in here." And he's
What
like,
the fuck, Batman?
and then Batman just leaves. This is like, he's just like, "You're a crazy person, and I'm gonna leave you here." And that's how it ends.
Damn, I thought Batman was the homie. What the fuck?
Well, I mean, Batman does turn out to be the homie. He does believe Rorschach. It's also just like he read Rorschach's journal, and everything that the original Rorschach says in the journal is kind of crazy. So I can understand why Batman's just like, "You're a nut. Like, we're gonna lock you in here so you don't hurt anybody." But we can try to get through the 4th issue, or we could just leave it here. It's up to you. I don't really care. Because I don't think they really, I don't think it really goes anywhere after. Like, it obviously goes places, but I really just wanted to show you that sequence in the Joker bar, because that thing was crazy. And then there's like a backup story about Mr. Terrific, but like I didn't read this, so I don't really care. And it doesn't have any bearing on the actual story. One thing I want to mention is, which is really cool, on the back of every issue was this like graphic here with the clock and the Superman logo at 12 o'clock, and like there's this red like blob like moving down the page every time, like every issue gets closer, and then in the final issue it overtakes the clock, and you see that it's Superman's cape, and that like it's not blood, and that when you reached 12 o'clock it wasn't Doomsday. Spoiler, it's not Doomsday. It's like
It's
the dawning of
Superman time,
Superman.
bitch.
Yeah, it's like the dawning of Superman, which is really cool. I don't know. I think this book in particular really does a good job of like addressing how important Superman is to the universe and why he's important and why people should care about him, you know? Whereas like otherwise DC Comics might as well just be Batman comics at this point. Like you want a crossover event? Let's make it Batman themed. It's like again.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's the beginning of Doomsday Clock, the first 3 issues. If anyone was interested in seeing how it ends, I'd be more than happy to finish it and finish the discussion on my channel or on Twitch if you guys want, and some interaction. It'd be fun. It gets way more bonkers as the stakes continue to raise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think the stakes at the end of it and essentially end up being like the destruction of the whole universe, which because it can't be a good superhero story if the stakes aren't complete and total annihilation apparently.
I mean, the marionette's pretty dope. Just shooting people with invisible guns and shit.
Bro, he's so cool. Like, so what'd you think?
Like I said, I think the marionette's a really cool character. I don't know how like much he gets used outside of this story, but
Oh, not at all. So what's really interesting is like he's a completely new invention for this book. So like he's a retconned into the Watchmen universe and then brought into the DC universe, and then they use him for this story, and I really don't know how you would use him in anything else, but it's pretty cool that they got him. I just love everyone was like, "Oh, Rorschach met Batman. This is gonna be sick. Like, it's gonna be dope." And then Batman just locked him in the fucking. Oh, that's like my
Locked him in prison.
favorite.